one, go.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's discussion on revolutionizing customer service modernization with AI. I'm Shomik Ghosh, Assistant Editor at ATCIO. Now, customer expectations are higher than ever before. We demand personalized experiences, the best features, and the latest technology. And we want all of this done yesterday. Now, in today's discussion, we're going to learn how digital natives can leverage AI innovation, seamless integrations, and connectivity to revolutionize customer service. And of course, what generative AI brings to the table. Joining me today are some of the best minds in Google who have been part of a lot of these customer journeys, and we're going to take a deep dive into this topic with them. Join me in welcoming Rajat Pandit. He's the Customer Engineering Leadership for Digital Natives and Startups and Generative AI at Google. Rajat, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure hosting you.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Up next is Anirudh Murali. He's a customer engineer at Google. Anirudh, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Samik. Pleasure to be here.
Sure. And of course, we've got Shilpa M. She's the customer engineer, infrastructure modernization at Google. Shilpa, absolute pleasure hosting you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Shomik. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, customer journeys and customer transformation, the modernization of customer service as we know it has been developing at a breakneck speed. And, since you've been part of a lot of these customer journeys and transformations, it'd be great if you could tell us about your observations. What have you seen? How has this landscape evolved? And what are we going to be seeing in 2024 and beyond? So over to you, Shilpa.
Thank you. Let me just quickly bring up my slide as well.
Sure. And while she's doing that, folks, I would want to remind you that you're most welcome to share your questions with us. These are probably the best minds at Google who are working on customer service modernization. Feel free to share your questions in the chat box and we'll pick it as we go along.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. As Shomik said, I'm Shilpa. I'm a customer engineer at Google Cloud. Today, what I'm going to talk to you about is how Google Cloud's conversation AI tools, backed by years of industry-leading technology in generative AI research that Google has been doing, can improve your customer service for your consumers. A high-quality customer experience is essential to being successful in your business, in your retail, whatever it is that you have today, right? The customer service experience that you offer to your consumers is often just as important as buying the product itself. Giving a simple example of just myself here, I was never much of a coffee drinker, or any beverage for that matter. But ever since I set my foot into Starbucks, the first day, from then I've been one of their loyal customers. And this is primarily because of the customer service they offer, right? With that being said, 77% of consumers consider a company's customer experience just as important as the quality of its products and services itself. And 81% of customers will make another purchase after a great customer experience, while 61% of these customers will switch to a competitor after one bad customer experience. Therefore, when your customers have problems or questions, it's absolutely critical to get them right in the first time with a friendly and in a speedy manner. But this is expensive to do manually. So to automate the customer service experience is crucial. However, automated customer service systems can be customer unfriendly, and the manual effort required to just develop this whole automated customer service solution could also be immense for the customers. And while some customers have complex issues where there's no alternative to a high-touch personal customer service engagement, many customers with their customer experience is answering the basic, questions to which you already have answers, whether it could be in your website or an internal repository or a PDF document. And by just leveraging this internal knowledge base that you have, you can very quickly spin off an agent that responds to your customer questions in a very quick and natural language and expressive, responsive manner. I'd like to take you through the demo now. What I'm going to present now is a fictional customer called as fictional retailer called as Symbol Bikes, and I'm going to represent the customer who's purchased something online, and I want to return this. And let's see how the chatbot responds to me. The repository that we've attached as a knowledge base to this is a simple FAQ document, the services that they have, the stores that they have, and the addresses of these stores. What you will notice is that it's able to do this without programming anything in the backend in terms of the flows or the questions that it answers. But I've simply just attached the agent that's provided out of the box to you to a knowledge base. Just give me a second while I bring up my slide. Yep. Sorry, that's the wrong one. We'll get to this later. Okay. Yep. So this right here, sorry, I need to get out my presentation. Yeah, this right here is Symbol's Bike. It's their customer service agent. And here you see all of the different services or the knowledge base that we are leveraging in order to equip the agent to converse with the customer. You see that they have a return policy, they have services, stores, FAQs. Now, I'm just going to ask a few simple questions. Let's see how it responds. I'd like to return a product that I bought online. Can I return this in store? And if you see, it's picking this answer from the return policy document. Let me go ahead and ask a question that relates to the services. Can I also have my bike tire fixed while I am at the store? So it's responding by saying that, yes, you can, and it costs so and so. And this response is picking up from the services. Now I'm going to go ahead and ask if there is a location in, say, New York. Do you have a store in New York? It goes ahead and gives me the answer along with the address and the store timings. Now let me switch. This is a chat bot, right? Let me switch over and also try this with voice. So with a simple integration, Dialogflow is the technology that's being used in the backend, can also integrate with a telephony partner in order for you to have this as enabled as a voice bot as well. So I'm going to go ahead and call the voice agent.
Welcome to Symbol Bike's customer concierge service. How can we help you today?
Hi, I'd like to return something I got on the web.
I will forward you to an agent.
Sorry, let me try that again.
Welcome to Symbol Bike's customer concierge service. How can we help you today?
Hi, I'd like to return a product that I bought online in store. Could I go to one of your stores to return the product?
Sure, you can return your online purchase in any of our stores. To do so, you must first place your order online. On the page for the item you're interested in, below the Add to Cart section, there should be Available at these stores near you link. Click on the store that's most convenient for you and it will take you to a Buy Online, Pick Up in Store option. Once your order is confirmed, you will receive an email with a pickup code. You can then bring your pickup code to the store and pick up your order.
Sure. Do you have a store in Chicago?
Yes, we do. Our Chicago store is located at 789 Michigan Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60601. The store hours are Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
All right, that's great. So to confirm, the store is open on Sunday, right?
Yes, our Chicago store is open on Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
All right, thank you. So if you see, it was able to do both the chat as well as the voice. And all of these answers that it's picking off from the knowledge repository that we've attached to the agent. I'm going to quickly show you the back end of how this was set up, so you get a brief idea on what goes on behind the scenes. And I would like you to see how simple this was to just set up. I have not used any programming or any sort of flows, building any conversation flows, turns, none of those things. So taking you into the console quickly. Yep. So all I've done is I started off with creating a storage bucket for symbol bike. And within the bucket, there is a folder that's been uploaded. Within the folder, all of these 4 documents have been uploaded as files. So you see KB here. And within KB, I have the FAQ, the return policy, services, stores, and so on. And then I go into something we call as the agent builder within the Vertex console of the Google Cloud Console. Here you create an app. Depending on what kind of app you want, you choose from there. And I've created a chat app over here. Once the app is created, you simply attach the data store. Now the data store is essentially connecting to your data source, in this case, it being the Google Cloud storage. So if I look into one of these data stores that has been attached here, you will see that all of the 4 files have been imported into this data store. And this data store is attached to your chat application. From the chat application, once the import has been completed and all the indexing is completed, your app is pretty much ready to use. From here, when you try to navigate into the application, it brings you into the Dialogflow console. And you have a basic setup that's already been created for you, ready to use. You have a start page that's created, where it defines the intent, the routes, the event handlers, and the other things. What I'd like to bring your attention to is the data store, because this is essentially all that I did, right? The data store here, symbol bytes KB1, which brings me back to those 4 files that I have. This is all that was needed to set up. And then I simply publish this, use this to integrate into my web UI, and it's ready to be used. And before I end, I just also want to just show you a diagrammatic view of this whole architecture. So in order to build a customer service solution, I'm sorry, are you seeing the presentation view? Okay, not. So just totally. Yep. So in order to build a chat bot or a voice bot, essentially you build something like an info bot, which is attached to your knowledge base, which I showed you in the Google Cloud Storage. You have the knowledge base and you have your chat agent set up. And then the conversation flows from your user either through text or a voice app, which goes into the client widget. From there, it goes into the infobot directly, which from there, it could navigate into the knowledge base. Or it could also go into a webhook in cases where you want to make external calls to say a calendar API or a database or anything else that is not part of your knowledge base already. So if you would like the bot to go ahead and schedule a meeting for your customer or make an appointment at one of your stores, any one of these, it could be a simple webhook call. And above all of this is everything else that Google Cloud offers, right? The security, you have your access controls, you have your VPC service controls, and the logging and the monitoring, again, it all comes by default. You can leverage all of the same Google Cloud features that are available to everything else that you set up, even for your infobot as well. Thank you.
All right.
I'd like
Thank you
to
so much.
invite Anirudh next for his piece.
Yeah, thanks, Shilpa.
Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, folks. So today I'll be walking you through a quick demo of what call center analytics can look like with generative AI. Um, so just to set the context on where something like this might be used, let's say you have a contact center set up with either virtual agents or human agents taking calls over IVR. Uh, Downstream from there, you may want to perform some analysis on the type of conversations that are going on. You may want to analyze call quality. You may want to understand the performance of your individual agents. You may want to understand the theme of conversations, or if there are any recurring patterns in the support conversations that are coming up. You may also want to understand what are the pending action items from a given support call, and make sure that you're following up on them. So over here, I have one sample audio that I've uploaded into this. This sample audio is a customer service conversation. So I'll just play sounds like.
There's a flight on November 10 returning on the 25th of November via Philippine Airlines and it costs 15,000 pesos.
That would be great.
May I have your name, please?
Yeah. So as you can see, this is a traditional conversation that you may have between a customer and a service agent. So the first thing that we're able to extract from this is the transcript of the conversation. We are able to separate it out by agent and customer. So we now have a chat form of the conversation that happened, or a textual form of the conversation that happened. We also have an easy to access summary of the entire conversation. We're able to see what the customer called for, what are the specific details that they provided, what they were looking for, what were the responses that were given, so that if, let's say, there is another conversation happening along the same lines with the same customer, the next agent has some context on prior actions that have been taken. We are also able to take a look at the sentiment score and the sentiment detail. So we know what, or we have a rough estimate of what the customer sentiment was throughout this entire conversation. And we also have a list of action items that have been automatically extracted for us, so that we can now follow up on these action items from the call. Now, as you can see, we provide all the primitives to build out this sort of downstream integration with your contact center. The larger picture is, if, let's say, you want a fully integrated contact center solution, we offer a suite of products called Contact Center AI, which essentially integrates all of this for you, right? So right from the front end, where your incoming calls are routed to human agents or virtual agents, these full-featured virtual agents can be built out using Dialogflow, like Shilpa demonstrated. They can talk to your backend systems. You can connect data stores to them. They can intelligently route conversations to human agents when they're unable to support conversations. Behind the scenes, you're able to extract insights from your conversations, understand summaries of conversations, understand sentiments, extract action items. You're also able to leverage the power of generative AI within all of this to essentially automate a lot of actions which require complex language understanding, right? Things like extraction of insights or summarization, where things like localization or accent or mixed language may come into play. All of this is essentially taken care of for you. um, so once again, the larger picture is contact center AI can integrate all of this for you. For your agents, it can integrate into your CRM, so that customer data is you're able to join customer data along with the contact center information. For your customers, you're able to integrate the a seamless UI experience within, let's say, your website or your mobile application, which are the most common services that we see today. And You see an entire end-to-end pipeline, right from the incoming conversation all the way to the final back office insights that are extracted. it's an overall seamless flow. With that, thanks, folks. I'll hand over back to Samik.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Anirudh. And thank you for your presentation as well, Shilpa. So yes, it does look, pretty promising, especially with the capabilities of being able to integrate customer sentiment analysis. And that's a pretty critical factor for a lot of companies that, that's something that they want to evaluate. Not just now, but then it's been so for the last 2 or 3 years. So there have been quite a few sweeping changes, and at this point, I want to bring Rajat into the conversation. So, Rajat, to start with, if you could tell us, from your vantage point, tell us how customer service, as we know it, has evolved over the last 2 or 3 years. What are some of the most significant milestones, and also what role does AI play when it comes to driving hyper personalization?
So, Samu, thank you for the question, and a very warm welcome to the audience today. Hopefully, everyone enjoyed the demos. This always amazes me whenever I look at these generative AI-based demos. They look something of a work of fiction with where the technology is today. So, what you've seen so far, let me just build a little bit on top of what you've seen, right, and in terms of where things are evolving. If you look at leveraging AI, a lot of it is around creating more efficient, effective, customer-centric approach to service. As you saw, being able to get some insights on the actual business process that you're trying to optimize. The focus is around creating a seamless, personalized, and proactive experience, making customers feel valued and understood. That's really what the crux of the overall objective is for this, right? Customer service is no longer just about resolving issues. So it's not like I have a problem, can you rebook my ticket, cancel my ticket? But it's about creating a positive experience throughout the journey, right? Being able to be responsive and be able to provide a solution or alternate solutions at scale and in a personalized manner. So what we've seen is that companies that are prioritizing emotional intelligence, empathy, building strong relationships with customers are the ones that are making a huge difference. So just going back to the question that you'd asked around the themes around the customer experience, there are 4 of them that are prominent. First one is around automation, the one that you saw earlier that Shilpa showed, around AI-powered automation specifically through chatbots and virtual assistants. I think that is very, very topical in that sense. And they've become very sophisticated, handling almost a broader range of customer inquiries from basic information requests to more complex workflows that require decision-making and seeking inputs along the way. So it is a multi-turn engagement, right? But that's all powered because of natural language processing improvements across the spectrum. So this allows the tools to understand customer intent a lot better and provide more relevant responses, even handling multilingual interactions, as we see in India, where people switch between languages as they engage with these systems. The second theme is around proactive and predictive support. So while customers would reach out and we provide them a good experience, how about proactively reaching out to the customer in advance, expecting, anticipating their needs and trying to address that? So AI is now used to anticipate some of these needs, triggering proactive outreach and suggesting relevant solutions before even the customers could reach out to them. So a lot of data analytics and predictive modeling to help organizations identify patterns and potential pain points, like orders getting delayed or shippings, not at the right address, and enabling them to address them with the customers proactively. It helps really amplify the customer experience. The third part is around the omni-channel support. So on the retail side, particularly where the businesses have turned omni-channel, the support also has to keep up with that experience. So customer expects seamless interactions across various channels like phone, email, social media, live chat, messaging. They talk across these various things. And when they go back to somebody that looks like a bot or a customer support experience application, they want to be able to unify the context and not have to repeat the same context they've shared in other channels. So companies that we worked with, are investing heavily in integrating these channels to create these unified experiences. This also helps enable agents to get the complete context without having the customer initiate a contact, and that often creates this world of difference in experience that they've not experienced before. And just to seize active churn, so as more new people join the organization, these end up becoming almost like an assistant to support the agents internally as well. And lastly, on your point on hyper-personalization, a well-built system can leverage all of this customer data and AI-driven insights to provide a more personalized experience. So, we've seen spectrum of product recommendation, customized offers, targeted communication, and being able to do that at an individual person level is what AI makes available. In fact, it is no longer just about resolving issues. As I said earlier, it is about creating these positive experiences throughout the customer journey itself. So it's now possible because now we can do this at scale, because now we understand the customer dimensions, their attributes, and then tailor the experiences that would befit their demographic or their cohort that they would represent. Right. Hopefully that covers your answer. Very long answer. Hopefully it's fairly holistic in that sense. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, absolutely. Long, but then yeah, we covered a lot of ground there, and they're really very relevant points that you've taken us through. Now, I was just curious about some of the use cases as well, Rajat. If you could walk us through some of the use cases that you've seen. Now, we've seen the usage of chatbots, that can also do sentiment analysis at a later point in time for customer service analytics. But then, if you could specifically zero in on how do you see Gen AI driving innovation and customer connect. I mean, it's the new flavor of the season. How do you see it being tapped?
Absolutely. And I get this question quite often. What's the difference between my existing bot and a Gen AI enabled bot? So absolutely, I think that's a very relevant point. In fact, these use cases are really where the rubber meets the road with all the excitement and euphoria around generative AI. What value does it bring to my business itself? So, I could go for hours, for giving you use cases, but just to give you a flavor of it, we'll pick um, two functions or two areas, and we'll talk a few use cases within those, just so that we can contextualize this. The first and the most obvious one is the frontline customer service. We saw a couple of examples of that, and specifically on the personalized chatbot side of things. So let's talk about a few of them. So on the chatbot side, to my earlier point around being able to differentiate between what a regular bot looks like versus generative AI bot, the ability to be able to customize the conversations to represent the tonality and personality that the brand represents. So there are some brands that appeal to a certain demographic. So how do you ensure that these bots can adopt that and engage with their customers in the way they like to be communicated? So that's one degree of personalization you see on chatbots. The other part is in the space of AI generated email responses. And this is really the ability to draft at scale, and that's the important part, at scale personalized emails, saving time and providing these tailored experiences through personalized offers, and even sending out those emails in the time slot that we are expecting customers to be checking their emails. So being able to do that at that level of personalization. Another emerging area that we've seen in the frontline space is around voice assistance for customer service. And specifically in India, where there's a whole new generation of people coming online from tier 2, tier 3 cities. Their first language might not be English or Hindi, which we almost assume in many ways. So, we might also know that they might not be very digitally savvy to do these inputs through a keyboard. So These bots offer a convenient and personalized support to actually communicate to these systems and be able to interact and build that experience around it. And the last one, which is I think very much of a game changer, is the proactive customer support. So I spoke about this earlier as well, but the ability to anticipate and prevent issues and anticipating what would impact customer satisfaction is quite important, particularly in the markets where the product differentiation is hard to identify. For example, FMCG, where the customer experience is where you would create the moat for creating a highly differentiated experience. That's really where your opportunity is, because you could compete on delivery, you can compete on pricing, but that then becomes commodity as well. So the real differentiation is the customer experience. That's really where the opportunity lies. Another function that I would want to briefly touch upon, just to close on that context, is around knowledge management and self-service. And this is also relevant to a segment of customer base, particularly with the new user base coming online, Gen Zs, as we like to call them, digital natives. They've always been comfortable with helping themselves with information and whatever access control they need. They don't like going through a call center experience, a lot of DIY stuff. So generative AI's ability to read documentation, create a set of potential questions and their answers, preempting a lot of that, creates amazing content to understand things like policies, processes better. Yes, we've seen a lot of organizations take their old historic policies and then using generative AI to create a conversational style Q&A, and then that gets fed into what a bot then uses as a knowledge base to respond back to answers. So that's one thing. Gen Zs love this approach because it has them answer specific answers to specific questions rather than reading a long piece of content and finding out what they're looking for. Another area of knowledge management is around supporting agents within the contact center, particularly around the knowledge-based creation and maintenance as well. So this helps agents with accurate and current information as the systems evolve quite a bit. So hopefully across the spectrum that we spoke about around frontline and the knowledge base, there is plenty of these use cases. I mean, we could do plenty of these in marketing, sales, so many other functions. And, as I said, I could take an entire day talking about it.
All right. Thanks so much for that. So yeah, some really relevant points there. And again, I would want to rope in the customer engineers at this point in time. So Anirudh and Shilpa, please, I would want you to take a stab at it. Now, in comparison to conventional AI, I mean, first and foremost, I never knew I would be referring to AI in a conventional sense or a traditional technology. But then, in comparison to conventional AI or AI as we know it, what additional capabilities does Gen AI add to your arsenal as customer engine engineers? How does it empower you as engineers to ensure customer success going forward?
Sure. Maybe I can take that, Saurabh. So I think the way I think about it is so even within generative AI, I think we've been in it long enough that we now have a couple of generations of generative AI. The first generation, which would be early 2023, is when we had the large language models come out, which really revolutionized the way we were able to understand complex natural language and perform tasks which earlier required huge teams of machine learning experts to train models and build these applications over months, shortened into a span of days. But again, the limitation there was it was all language, right? It was all text. And now we are probably in the second wave of generative AI, where we are able to process not only language but also other forms of input, right? Things like audio. We just saw a demo of that. Things like images, things like video. We're even able to generate images and videos, right? So this again, I would say it is equally revolutionary, or I would say maybe even more revolutionary, because it unlocks a whole new set of use cases which were either impossible or required huge amounts of time in terms of um, the development cycle to actually build out those features. So for example, I think we work with one logistics customer who has completely automated the reverse pickup process, where they're able to analyze pictures of a product that has come in, a defective product, verify what sort of defects it has, understand whether if it's the same product that the customer has ordered, and essentially it does this in a matter of seconds. So earlier teams would have to spend months building this out, but now we're able to iterate on this, build out a POC in the span of days, take this to production in the span of weeks. So that is really the power of I think the new forms or the new modalities of generative AI that we have today.
Got it. Thank you so much.
To that, also the amount of data set. Earlier, when we talk about the conventional AI, as you put it, right? The ideas were great and we wanted to innovate with the customer. More often than not, they don't have enough data. So one is that. And then if they do come up with the data, then to build and train the models and then finally come up with the output, the cycle would be much more longer to go to market with that feature or solution that they were trying to build, as opposed to that now, because these are LLMs and they're already trained on huge amount of data set. It already has a certain amount of intelligence built in now. So to get to the product's outcome and go to market, the cycle is much smaller and we can get there faster.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much for sharing those points with us, Shilpa and Anirudh as well. Now, audience, I know you folks are using Gen AI. A lot of you are dabbling in Gen AI in some form or the other. Today at least 65% of the global organizations are regularly using Gen AI in at least one business function. So I know you have a lot of questions when it comes to the implementation, some of the teething problems or early challenges. Feel free to pose those questions here and we'll have them addressed by the experts. So moving on again, to the other point of questions. So we did look at this in the presentation as well as some of the use cases that we were discussing. And there's this one thing that's come up, there's a lot of data that's coming in, not from only text, but then you also have to, sift through a lot of images, audios, and video files as well. All of them are disparate data sources. So, Rajat, let me ask you this. In the present day, the companies have identified the need to process and integrate information coming from all these, different kinds of data sources. What's the function of multimodal foundation models in this context? And also, how does Google Cloud look at this?
So yeah, I think this is one of those areas in AI where there are multiple of these innovations in multiple places that have come together to meet the opportunity. Right, a lot of the unutilized data sitting in the enterprise now is even more valuable than it has been, just because of the ability around this. And as you mentioned, companies generated a lot of these data sets around various modalities. With this email, social media, survey, through photo products, user-generated content, call recordings, as you saw in the demo, voicemails, including customer interactions, marketing content. There's so much of this that, how do you stitch that and build that, useful view around this? And traditional systems often struggle in effectively understanding and leveraging these insights because of the mix of structured and unstructured data. That's really where the problems stem from. And, if you look at historically, the conventional AI had technologies, but unfortunately, it was in bits and pieces. And that's really where it never really took off. And there were a couple of problems with this. So let me just first set the context of the problem, and then I'll talk about what it looks like in today's space and what we're doing about it. So firstly, the level of accuracy and speed was beyond practical implementation. So while you would have the speech to text recognition, or you would have the image generation, the quality of that was not particularly great, right? And again, the speed at which the latency, a human interaction happens, you'd expect that systems would respond back to that pace. The second part was around cost of running this. Now, it has to make business sense. You shouldn't really have to sell your company to run a new feature. So it had to make a business sense where the TCO does not overrun the ROI around it. And lastly, more importantly, and this is a very nuanced aspect, is that discrete parts of stack, as they lack the ability to stitch context across various modalities. For example, if you're trying to explain and reason the connection between a revenue graph and the narrative, let's say an annual financial report, which comes naturally to human being because you can look at the graph and the text and make the association. For machines, it is very different. And in the past, even with advanced AI, you would take the image separately, do the analysis separately, and the text and do the analysis separately. But unless you see both modalities in the same context, just like human beings do, you can't establish the connection between the two. So that's really what the problem was. Now that we understand the problem, let's just look at how we're solving this in the solution space itself. And that starts with this new form of frontier models called multimodal, as you spoke about earlier. And these are foundation models that have been trained on vast and diverse data sets that possess information about these different modalities. And really, there are two different things where they differentiate, right? One is they have a unified understanding. So like I explained in the problem statement, these models bridge the gap between text, image, audio, video, extracting and correlating the information between the sources to gain a much richer and a more holistic understanding of the customer interactions. Things like brand sentiment, market trends, it can analyze a lot of that information together, irrespective of whatever data sources you put into it. Second part of it, where they really differentiate, is their ability to do enhanced analysis across the modalities. So I was mentioning earlier, these models have a ability to deeper analysis and insights by identifying patterns and connections that can be missed when modalities are analyzed in isolation. So its ability to stitch this context together is where it really shines. Now, this allows the models to power more intuitive and effective self-service tools. One of the examples we've seen before is building an app through a car manufacturer who could take a picture of what is showing up on the dashboard, and it can pick up relevant parts of the manual and say what the error was coming from. And that is something that delighted their experiences, because nobody wants to flip through a manual in case of a crisis in their car, right? So, Shobhik, to put this in context, let's look at some more examples of the one I spoke about to see what kind of solution areas it unlocks when you have these modalities, right? The one that comes to mind is more recently that we've, the sentiment analysis that you saw earlier. But, you saw the demo, so I won't labor the idea. But the kind of problems it solves essentially is, get a sense on whether the customer is happy and agitated. Obviously, you would question that the human being on the other side, the agent, should be able to do that as well. But when you're running a call center with 10,000 agents and you are the operations manager, you want to figure out what the sentiment at an organization level looks like. So being able to do analysis at that level really elevates the value that these stack builds.
Got it.
Right.
Got it. Yeah,
Another
great.
area of actively bring. So yeah, so to actually build up questions to ask the question to ask the customer, and also you saw the nice summary that it brings up as well. So sort of that gives you an idea of what we're looking for. Um, so in terms of what we're thinking about at Google, we've got a history in search, and understanding customer intent has always been in our DNA. So understanding the importance of seeing context across modalities, we've built our Gemini family of models that are ground up to be multimodal. So in addition to having these powerful reasoning capabilities, the Gemini family of model understands text, video, audio we spoke about, but also code as input modalities. And while the current output modalities are text and image, like Anirudh mentioned earlier, we have other modalities in the works. We must have heard about the Project Vio announcement we made around text to video, and we have the text to image as well today, which is possible. So, just to round up on this, there are three specific areas that we're doing differently from the industry, and I think it's worth pointing out. First is there's been a lot of concern around content ownership, copyright for AI-generated content. So we were the first and only one at the moment, which in our terms and conditions have explicitly stated the indemnification clause for our customers for use of AI, both on the data that was trained with and the output that it generates. The second one is we've been very concerned about content provenance and how you see fake news and fake images. So we have added the ability to digitally watermark the content that is generated. And this is one of our DeepMind projects called SynthID that makes users be able to independently verify the source of the image around it. And the last part is, like with a lot of other aspects of technology that Google does, we're truly open in open source manner. So we release the weights of the model for some of the models that we're building internally. But also in terms of licensing for use for commercial purpose. So we have Gemini, which is the enterprise version, and we have the open source, open weight model as well, should you want to run that on your own. So that is sort of broadly what we're thinking at Google around multimodality.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. And at this point, I would also want to take inputs from Shilpa. Shilpa, you've raised your hand, and I'll be going to Anirudh as well. Shilpa, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some interesting examples to what Rajat just explained in terms of the content creation, right? We're working with one of a CRM customer, and they have an automation tool, which is it's automation, but it's still manual to a large extent in terms of when the marketing team has to generate creatives for emailers that are sent out, for example. Now, it's a lot of drag and drop and generally using your own brain in order to come up with the outcome, and it takes a few weeks and multiple iterations. But now with Gen AI coming into play, all they have to do is enter a simple prompt saying, we are targeting 20 to 25-year-old girls for a holiday, summer holiday, and that's about it. And then it goes ahead and generates images, the hashtag for it, emailer for it, and if you uploaded your database of the users, it goes by the user name, the geography that they're from, like if they're from France or if they're from Italy, and also be able to generate email in English as well as their native language. And this automates stuff to a large extent for them. That's on the content creation side. On the multimodal side, we're working with another customer in the edtech space where they want to be able to provide students the 24-hour learning assistant facility. So once they're done with the class, they would like to share the recordings. But now it's a 1 hour, 2 hour long recording, and the student's not going to want to go through the entire video each time, right? So now they can just converse with an AI agent and say, hey, the teacher was explaining thermodynamics. Can you get to that? Or they could just upload a drawing that they have taken down in their notes and then upload that image and say, can you take me to this part where the teacher was explaining based on what this diagram that I have just drawn in my notes. And they can do something as simple as that as well. And that's an example I wanted to share on the multimodal side.
Thank you, Shilpa. I mean, unbelievable how easy it's become for students nowadays. I really wish there was something to translate applied thermodynamics to me when I used to miss classes, but yeah, still happy. All right, Anirudh, if you could chip in for the multimodal conversation as well. You've been working with us ground up. What are some of the technical complexities that you've seen when it comes to trying to integrate data from text, audio, video, different formats?
Sure. So I think the major thing that we've been coming to terms with over this year is, as you said, figuring out what is the most effective way to make use of these different formats of data. Because traditionally, it was not an avenue that was open to us. Now that it is, we need to figure out how to make the most effective use of it. I think we're seeing some very exciting use cases where we have customers pushing the boundaries of these models beyond what they were originally trained for. With things like chaining of models, agentic workflows where we have multiple models or multiple agents talking to each other, planning out workflows, and essentially building out these more complex reasoning and logic pipelines, which may not be possible with a single model, right? So these are some of the really exciting use cases which are sort of at the frontier of what is possible with these models today.
Okay.
And I think like they have the capability of automating a lot more complex workflows and essentially making life a lot easier for most of us.
Got it. Got it. Understood. All right. Now, as we discussed earlier, Rajat, there are a lot of companies that are taking the baby steps into leveraging Gen AI. What would be your advice to them? You've been leading customer engineering for quite some time now. So, what are the absolute must-dos for customers or for companies when it comes to trying to leverage Gen AI to improve customer service?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. And, when cloud came in its early days, there was what we published called a cloud adoption framework. And that was sort of a prescriptive guide on how enterprises could adopt. We don't have one in the AI space today. And frankly, it's fragmented in the terms of the ideas that are there. I'm sure as the field matures and we know more about what it takes, there will be a framework in place. But I think for today's conversation, we'll try and cover two aspects that I think is quite important. Because just like in the cloud space, if there is no intentional orchestration in the organization of executing these projects, it'll end up being somebody's pet project that never sees the light of production, right? So let's start with the obvious one on the technology space. I think the first part that I would absolutely emphasize on, and I see a lot of organizations get it wrong, is the strategic selection on AI, right? And this is specifically where people spend a lot of time on model selection, right? However, what we've seen is when customers make a choice on platform first, their ability to try out different models, even during the pilot phase, actually increase significantly. And this is because for every model evaluation that they do, there are some common skills and capabilities that are required, right? And if they're not standardized first upfront, the team ends up losing a lot of momentum in the undifferentiated heavy lifting of introducing a new model in the ecosystem. You bring a new model, deploy it on a VM, and you go through the process. And this is a problem that a platform solves very nicely for you. And as you know, it has an approach and a tool chain, and it switches the whole experience for you together. So you can actually iterate on that much faster. So in GCP, we have Vertex AI that offers Model Garden. So that gives you access to first party, third party, and open source models, all in a very consistent way to access. Now, in addition to Model Garden, it also provides things like prompt engineering tools, prompt management, model comparison, training, and hosting. These are common aspects. Now, in the absence of these models, you'll have to go and solve this independently. So first, make a choice on the platform. The second part, and not necessarily in that order, is building a robust data strategy, because GenAI is a lot about your data, right? High quality, structured, ideally well structured, but unstructured as well, is foundation to an effective generative AI strategy. So organizations need to invest in setting up org structures, roles, policies on things like data generation, retention, metadata management, governance, lineage, access control. There are so many dimensions of it that they need to think about. I would even go to the extent of considering setting up data product managers who solely think about the lifecycle management of data and business value that is generated with this data. And the foundation of a good data strategy, creating compelling customer experiences becomes that much easier in that sense. The third point, and not necessarily in the order of priority, is also security. Now, it builds on the previous point. Orgs need to implement a robust security measure to protect customer data and safeguard against cyber threats. All of these, applying all the relevant data privacy regulations, and need to have a transparent data handling practice. So make sure that customers are aware of where their data is being used, what is it being used for? Is it used to train a model? That kind of stuff is quite critical, because if you're thinking about large-scale implementation, you've got to get the groundings right itself. And lastly, all these AI systems learn from feedback, right? So as you build these applications, think about a robust feedback loop, establishing some sort of mechanism to continuously gather feedback on how their end users are responding to AI-generated response is an important feedback loop, because it helps fine-tune the models and helps the teams improve the accuracy and relevancy of what these models come up with. So that's on the technology side. And I think four parts are quite critical for establishing the second part, and this is also often quite overlooked, is around the people and culture side of things. Now, this is a new emerging technology, right? So there is a need for building a very customer-centric mindset. So orgs almost need to reinforce the principle that generative AI is only a tool, and this tool is there to enhance customer experience, but not to replace human interaction itself. And hence they need to foster a culture of prioritizing empathy, prioritization, and building long-term relationship with customers. So that sort of helps them figure out what parts they need to solve with AI, what parts they need to have human in the loop. And that's an important aspect of thinking, a full, rich customer experience solutions around it. Another aspect is around experimenting and learning. As I said, this is a new technology stack. So given the space, organizations need to encourage a culture of experimentation and learning as well. They need to allow teams to test and iterate in different generative AI applications, different use cases, attend these kind of webinars to get ideas, discover what works best for them and for the business and the customers as well, right? And just building on, for all of these things, upskilling, reskilling is very, very important as well. So organizations need to think about how to empower their staff, help technologists and customer experience agents. So across the spectrum of, internal staff, they need to be equipped with skills that help them effectively interact with generative AI tools and understand the outputs they generate as well. What does it mean? Where is it coming from? Right, that kind of explainability aspect, and specifically focus on areas like prompt engineering, interpretation of AI responses, and ethical considerations as well. So just one point, then I'll hand it over to you. Right, what we've learned from these successful implementations is, organizations need to take a fairly holistic approach, right, by focusing on people, technology, culture, organizations, all of that stuff together, because that is how you would create these customer experiences, because it's business and customer first and then technology in that sense. And because you're looking to create this personalized and truly transformative experience, it's not going to happen by taking human beings out of the equation completely, right? So that's sort of broadly my take on that. So I'll request Anil to add to it as well.
Sure. So yeah, Rajat, I think while we were on the topic, I just wanted to add a couple of points because I see some questions from the audience. One on building custom LLMs and one on preventing sensitive information from leaking into the public domain. I think as Rajat said, right, having a robust platform around your LLMs or your ML stack in general, I think that is where this really helps, because it takes away the operational overhead of thinking about these aspects of your model, right? So you can have a platform where you can train and experiment rapidly to figure out what is the best model for you based on your data and your requirements. You also have a platform which allows you to deploy it in a very robust, scalable, and secure way. We have frameworks which allow you to ensure that you don't have sensitive data leaking out into the public, and all of this is essentially, as Rajat said, undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? Irrespective of the model you're using, these are aspects that you will need to put into place for an enterprise grade ML application. And these are aspects which are essentially handled by your platform, so that you don't need to think about it. You just think about what is the best model for you and how you can bring your data to the model. So I think that essentially is taken care of by a good platform.
Understood. Some real pearls of wisdom out there. Thank you for sharing those points, Rajat and Anirudh. There's another one that I see from Sanjay Sao, who says, how does customer service and modernization with AI impact or improve B2B businesses? Rajat, do you see that being any different, or is it pretty much on the same lines as what we see with B2C?
So I think the nature of function of B2B businesses result in the kind of data that you collect, which is different. So if you look at a B2C business, it is high volume, high transaction, high engagement. So the number of implicit and explicit signals that you get is fairly high, right? And you can track. Whereas in the B2B business, depending on the kind of business, the recency, frequency aspects of the engagement is a lot less. So the only difference would then in that case be to think about where are you going to get your data signals from to build the experiences, and what is more relevant for them. A lot of these are in a fairly formal setting, fairly structured in that sense. So I think on a B2B side of things, the data side is a challenge. The experience creation is less of a complicated experience. On a B2C side, the variance is too much, and the volume data coming in is too much as well. So that requires being very prescriptive about it.
All right. Another question that we have pertaining to the banking sector, and I'll direct this towards you as well, Rajat. Now, we've been talking about advanced bots, and we already know that banks are now using bot technologies or chatbots. But what about the advanced bot chats that we have been talking about? Is it advisable for the banking sector to deploy those or start experimenting with those? Also considering that there's a very, very heavily regulated industry.
Yes, absolutely. And again, for all emerging technologies and highly regulated industries, there is always this challenge of how do you marry the opportunity that an innovation brings in while staying within the constraints of the regulation that is often provided. So to answer that question, the aspects of the industry that are highly regulated, right, require very stringent measures around what kind of experiences you create. But banking as a whole has very many dimensions around it. When it comes to publicly available content, right, that's a great starting point. We've seen a lot of banks reach out to us to change the experience on how search works, for example. So, for example, he said, how do I open a savings bank account? Right. Today, bots would send you a link, or search engines would send you a link to say, here's the link that describes how to create a savings account. An advanced bot in this case would do something like summarize the steps that you require, reading the content to say, here's step 1, 2, and 3 for you to. So that helps. So there are these baby steps that these regulated industries could take. On the advanced bot side, there are scenarios where once they have passed through enough security measures that address the compliance need, you could actually implement what Shilpa showed earlier through webhooks, questions that often don't make a transaction on behalf of the customer, but explain the transaction. So, for example, if you say, how many points do I have on my credit card, right? That sort of information, once you're logged in, is much easier to answer and safer to answer because you're not doing a transaction on behalf of the customer. But as always for these regulated industries, my advice would be ensure you work with seasoned domain professionals who can help you validate whether these are within the realms of the regulated industry itself.
Understood. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground there, and that's pretty much all the time that we have for the Q&A session today. But thank you again. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, the best practices, and the future of customer modernization with us. So thanks again, Shilpa. Thank you, Anirudh, and of course, Rajat. It was a pleasure hosting you. And folks, I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did. You guys have a great evening ahead.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.